Week 15 of the fantasy football season. Here's a few wide receivers I looked at off the wire this week. So with playoffs coming up, maybe some of these wide receivers can help fantasy owners. First receiver, Luther Burden III of the Chicago Bears. So we know week to week Rome Odunze is with the foot injury. And Burden III, he was easily the best receiver in the tough loss in week 14 at Green Bay. So the last few weeks, he's had an expanded role in this offense as Luther Burden. I know Caleb Williams, he's been up and down as well in his second season. Week 12 versus Pittsburgh, a carry, 15 yards, 3 catches, 46 yards. Week 13 at Philly, 4 catches, 33 yards, a carry, 3 yards. And week 14 at Green Bay, 4 catches, 67 yards on 6 targets. So like I said, Luther Burden, he's been getting more playing time as the weeks have gone on. Now, obviously, with Rome Odunze week to week with the foot injury, I think Odunze, he'll probably be out another week or two for the Chicago Bear team. And week 15, it is a tough matchup on paper versus Cleveland, even though we saw Tennessee, the worst teams in the league, go up and down the field versus defense. So like I said, Burden, more comfortable in this offense. Him and Caleb Williams have good rapport. And they even use him as a gadget guy at times as well as the Chicago Bear teams. With Ben Johnson, the head coach, I think Luther Burden definitely a good pickup, and he's out there in 83% of fantasy league. Next wide receiver, Jaden Higgins of the Houston Texans. So Jaden Higgins, I thought it's been a decent rookie season for him, especially this second half for Jaden Higgins, where he's the number 2 option in the receiving room. So the last few games for Higgins, week 11 at Tennessee, 4 catches, 55 yards. Week 12 versus Buffalo, 4 catches, 38 yards, a touchdown. Week 13 at the Colts, 5 catches, 65 yards. And week 14 in Kansas City, 3 catches, 34 yards in that one for Higgins. So week 15, a good matchup versus the Cardinals. We know their defense can't stop anyone. We just saw Puka Nacua, even though obviously he's an elite talent and one of the best receivers in the league, go for 167 and 2 touchdowns in that ball game versus Arizona defense. But Jaden Higgins, he's been playing better football, where he's had 3 out of the last 5 games double-digit fantasy points. And he's getting a lot of one-on-one coverage as well, where teams are focusing, double-teaming with his safety over the top versus Nico Collins more times than not. So this week with a good matchup and out there in 58% of fantasy leagues. Higgins is in it this week. The next wide receiver, Jaden Reed of the Green Bay Packers. Jaden Reed returned to the lineup for the Green Bay Packers. I know the numbers weren't great, but to get back into action after he missed pretty much the whole season, week 2 was the last time we saw Jaden Reed. Week 14 versus the Bears, 2 carries, 22 yards, 4 catches, 31 yards. In week 15, it is a tough matchup at the Denver Broncos, one of the best defenses in the league, obviously, and arguably the best, giving up the 4th least amount of fantasy points to wide receivers on the season. But Jaden Reed, we know they've used them in different formations, line them up all over the field to this Green Bay Packer team. And some weeks he's going to be consistent and some weeks inconsistent. That's what we saw last season. But Reed, him and Jordan Love have had rapport ever since Love has been the starter for this Green Bay Packer team. And even with a tough matchup, he's still someone I would go out there and get, and he's available right now in 59% of fantasy leagues. Next wide receiver, Jimmy DK of the Tennessee Titans. So DK, to me, he's the number 1 option in that passing game for this Tennessee Titan team. I know this offense is very inconsistent with Cam Ward, but they went into Cleveland, one of the better defenses in the league. They put up big numbers in that ball game. Was this Tennessee Titan team, and also as well, it was bad weather conditions. I know week 15 it's a good tough matchup at the 49ers as well, where they're coming off a bye week and their defense has actually been playing better over the last few weeks. But the Niners do give up the 12th most fantasy points to wide receivers on the season. The last few weeks for DK, week 12 versus Seattle, 5 catches, 44 yards, a receiving touchdown, a punt return touchdown. Week 13 versus Jacksonville, only a catch, 8 yards, a fumble loss. And week 14 at Cleveland, a solid game, 5 catches, 24 yards, a touchdown, 8 targets. So someone has to catch the football for this Tennessee Titan team, obviously. And DK, he's been the guy, him and Alec Gay, I mean, the 2 receivers who really done anything for this Titan team, even though I still wouldn't start these guys in my lineup. But DK definitely someone to get off the waiver wire and stash on your bench just in case he keeps getting it going and you can use him for the last couple weeks. So this part of the year, the waiver wire is tough to navigate, but you never know. You're just looking for plays with opportunity, and DK definitely has an opportunity right now with this Tennessee Titan team. With Ridley out for the season and not much else going on in the passing game, and he's available in 85% of fantasy leagues. Next receiver, Jalen Coker of the Carolina Panthers, out there in 96% of fantasy leagues. And he finally had a breakout game in week 13 versus the Rams before they went on bye. So week 15, a good matchup at the New Orleans Saints. Their defense really isn't all that good. And Coker, like you said, he's been injured the majority of the season, missing the first 7 weeks of the season. Now he's been back, so now to have a few good games under his belt go on by and come back refreshed. He is a starter, obviously, in this lineup for Carolina. And him and Bryce Young are building rapport, so with a good matchup coming up, definitely a good add this week to me is Coker. The last few games, week 11 in Atlanta, 4 catches, 52 yards, a 2-point conversion. Week 12 at the Niners, 3 catches, 32 yards. And week 13 versus the Rams, 4 catches, 74 yards, and a touchdown in that one. So like I said, good matchup coming up. He's a big target, 6'4", 6'5" is Jalen Coker. He could run the routes and make plays. And like I said, he missed the first 2 months of the season pretty much. So to be back and coming off a bye this late in the year definitely can help him. In the final wide receiver, Ryan Flournoy of the Dallas Cowboys. So we saw CeeDee Lamb. He went out with a concussion in that ball game where he was just putting up huge numbers before he went out. 6 catches, 121 yards in that one. It was at Detroit. And then Flournoy came in and he had a big ball game, stepping in for CeeDee Lamb. We saw a big game early in the season when Lamb was out for Flournoy. In week 5 at the Jets, 6 catches, 114 yards on 9 targets and 2 carries, 10 yards. And then coming in for Lamb in week 14 at Detroit, he had a monster game. 9 catches, 115 yards, a touchdown on 13 targets. Sunday Night Football, Minnesota coming in. Their defense has been hit or miss this season. Is this Minnesota Viking team? And we know this Dallas Cowboy team, one of the better offenses in the league in terms of points per game and yards, obviously. But Flournoy, let's say CeeDee Lamb's out, he's a good pickup. And even if you don't get early practice reports on CeeDee Lamb, I don't think you have to use a lot of fab money, or you just put in a basic claim where even after the waivers, he'll be there as Flournoy. Like I said, I think Lamb possibly could return, but we'll see. But if you need someone who could step right into the starting lineup and produce, if Lamb is going to miss, Flournoy, like I said, we've seen some good flashes from him, and Dak obviously likes him, targeting him that much, and he's available 99% of fantasy leagues. That's a few wide receivers I looked at off the wire for week 15 of the fantasy football season.